Snow swept across the parking lot like fine white ash shaken from a dying fire. The kind of snow that didn't fall so much as drift sideways, weightless, merciless. It clung to windshields and settled into the grooves of tire tracks and found every gap in a person's clothing that wasn't sealed tight. Ethan Carter noticed the snow first, then the car, then the woman standing beside it. She was young, mid-20s, maybe gripping the lapels of a coat that was clearly built for a different kind of cold, the fashionable kind, the stepping briefly from a heated lobby kind. Not this kind. Not the kind that came out of a sky like hammered iron at 11:15 on a Tuesday night in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. 3 men stood close to her. Not dangerously close. Not the kind of close you could describe to a police officer and have it mean anything on paper, but close enough that she had taken one step back, close enough that the step hadn't helped. Ethan stopped walking. His daughter Lily felt the change in his pace and looked up at him, then across the parking lot. "Daddy," Lily said quietly. She looked scared. He didn't answer. He was already reading the geometry of the scene, the angles of the men's shoulders, the position of the woman's hands, the gap between her and the locked car door. He had grown up in this town. He knew every kind of cold that could settle into a parking lot at night. He walked forward. His voice, when it came, was completely calm. "She's with me." Everyone turned. The woman looked at him. Her eyes were wide, not with recognition, but with something that might become it. She had never seen this man in her life, and the night was only beginning to change. Ethan Carter was 34 years old and had owned, at various points in his life, very little. A '98 Silverado that burned through oil, a rented 2-bedroom house on Millard Street whose furnace made a sound like a dying animal every February. A collection of hand tools that had belonged to his father and that he maintained better than anything else he'd ever owned. And Lily, 6 years old, gap-toothed, absolutely certain that dogs were smarter than people, and currently asleep by 9 o'clock on weeknights, unless something kept her up a story. A nightmare, or the particular quality of snowlight through her curtain that made her want to watch it fall. Ethan worked the night shift at Hargrove Auto, a service garage on the edge of Colton Falls that handled everything from oil changes to bodywork. He'd been there 6 years. Before that, he'd worked construction. Before that, he'd been a kid with a GED and no particular plan who had found himself, somewhat accidentally, knowing a lot about engines. He didn't talk much about Lily's mother. Her name had been Rebecca. She had left when Lily was 14 months old, not disappeared, not dramatically, just gone, in stages, the way some people went. A weekend visit that became a month that became a year. Ethan had stopped explaining it to people and started simply answering questions about whether he had help with. No, he managed. That was the honest word for it. He managed. He cooked breakfast before school, packed lunches, picked Lily up from aftercare at 5:30, made dinner, did homework, ran baths, told stories, and then drove himself to Hargrove at 10 for his shift, where he worked until 6 and drove home in the gray early morning and slept until noon and did it all again. On nights when the weather was decent, they walked home together after his shift if it coincided with a late evening he'd arranged with his neighbor, Mrs. Albrecht, who kept Lily on short notice Tuesdays. He liked those walks. Lily would hold his hand and talk about whatever she'd been thinking dogs, mostly, but also the interior politics of her first-grade class, which were apparently quite complex. This particular Tuesday night, she had asked him whether clouds were alive. "Not in the way you and I are alive," he told her, "but in a different way? Maybe. They move on their own. They change shape. So do I," Lily said, apparently settling something in her mind. They were half a block from the garage when he saw the parking lot. Ethan was not the kind of man who stepped into situations. He was, by disposition and necessity, careful. He had a daughter who needed him functional and present, and he had long since traded whatever reckless instincts he'd had at 20 for something more useful. Attention. He paid attention to the world around him. He noticed things. He noticed things the way you learn to notice them when you have no backup. He noticed the woman before he noticed the men. She was standing very still beside a silver sedan, late model, clean, out-of-state plates, and she had the posture of someone who had decided very recently that stillness was safer than movement. Then he noticed the men, and then he walked forward and said the words, and the night became something else. Her name, she told him later, was Anna. In the moment, she said nothing. She simply looked at him, this stranger with a tired face and a little girl in a yellow knit hat, and understood in approximately 2 seconds what he was doing, and why, and what it would require of her. She stepped toward him. The tallest of the 3 men, broad-shouldered, maybe 40, wearing a down jacket with a logo on the breast that Ethan didn't recognize, narrowed his eyes. "Your girlfriend?" "Yeah," Ethan said. He didn't look at Anna when he said it. He kept his eyes on the tall man in a way that was neither aggressive nor uncertain. Just steady. The way you held a door open, patient, but not going anywhere. "Funny," the man said. "She didn't mention you. Car trouble has a way of making people forget things." A beat. The second man, shorter, with reddish stubble and restless hands, looked from Ethan to Anna and back again. The third man had said nothing since Ethan arrived and seemed to be calculating something. "We were just offering help," the tall one said. "I appreciate that," Ethan said. "I've got it from here." Another pause, the kind that goes several different directions depending on what people decide. Then the tall man stepped back. Just once. It was the step that ended the scene. "Cold night," he said. And it was addressed to no one in particular, and the 3 of them walked back toward a dark SUV parked at the far edge of the lot. They sat in the vehicle with the engine running and the lights off. Ethan noted that, but didn't look at it for more than a second. He turned to the woman. She was shaking. Not visibly, not dramatically, just the fine, bone-deep trembling that cold and adrenaline together produce. The kind that's hard to stop once it starts. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," she swallowed. "Do you know those men?" "Not personally." She hesitated, then added, more quietly, "I know who sent them." Lily, who had been watching this entire exchange with the focused attention she usually reserved for dogs and weather, looked up at the woman. "Your car's broken?" she asked. "It won't start," the woman confirmed. "Daddy fixes cars." "So I gathered." For the first time, the tension around the woman's eyes loosened just slightly. "Thank you," she said to Ethan. "Genuinely, you probably saved me from something I didn't want to find out the shape of." "The garage is half a block back," he said. "There's heat. You can use the landline to call whoever you need to call." "Okay." She glanced at the dark SUV. It hadn't moved. "Okay, yes, let's do that." He didn't ask her anything else as they walked. He didn't look back at the SUV more than once. The snow had thickened, and the wind had a directional quality now pushing from the east, hard and persistent. Lily reached up and took the woman's hand. Just like that. Without preamble, the woman looked down at her, startled. "You're cold," Lily explained, and the woman, whoever she was, whatever she was running from, said nothing for a moment, just held the child's small hand and walked. Hargrove Auto was not a glamorous place. It smelled of oil and rubber and the particular chemical sweetness of degreaser. The overhead lights in the service bay were industrial and cold, but the break room in the back had a space heater that worked well and a vending machine that dispensed coffee that was not good but was hot. Ethan settled Lily on the old couch under a car show blanket he kept in his locker and got her a packet of crackers from the machine. She was asleep within 10 minutes. She was that kind of child, present and vivid when awake, completely surrendered when it was time to sleep. He brought the woman a coffee and sat across from her at the small table. She wrapped both hands around the paper cup. Her hands were elegant, long-fingered, no rings, clean nails. A small scar on the inside of her left wrist that she didn't seem to notice him notice. "Anna," she said, before he asked. "Ethan." I know I owe you an explanation. You don't, he said. You don't owe me anything. She looked at him, really looked, the way people do when they're trying to decide if something is real. Most people would have asked by now. Most people do a lot of things, he said. Doesn't mean I have to. She wrapped the coat tighter around herself. It was cashmere. He noticed real cashmere, not the blended kind. Expensive. Out of place here. But she didn't hold herself the way wealthy people usually did in rooms like this, that faint stiffness. The invisible distance. She sat the way a person sits when they're exhausted and grateful for the chair. The car won't start because the battery died, she said. I was sitting in it for too long with the heat running. I lost track of time. How long had you been there? 4 hours, maybe 5. She looked at the coffee. I was waiting for something to feel sad. Didn't. Ethan thought about that. I can jump the battery, or I can pull it and charge it overnight. Either way, you're not going anywhere in this storm. The storm. She said it flatly, as if she'd forgotten it existed. It's supposed to run through morning. Roads in and out of town will be closed by 1. He paused. There's a motel on Route 9 if you need somewhere to sleep. Morley's. It's not much, but it's clean. Those men will be watching the roads, she said. He let that sit for a second. Then, you can stay here tonight. I'll be in the bay working. No one will bother you. You're offering a stranger your break room. I'm offering a stranger a couch, he said. The couch is taken, but there are 2 chairs that pull out flat, and I have a spare blanket. She was quiet for a long moment. Why? She asked. He thought about it honestly. Because you needed it, and I had it, he said. That's usually the whole reason. She looked at him for another long moment. Then she nodded, once, and drank her coffee. Outside, the snow had reached the window ledges. The dark SUV was no longer visible from the break room window, but Ethan had noticed, when he brought in the last tool from the bay, that it had moved. Reposition, he'd thought. Not gone, just repositioned. He hadn't told her that. Not yet. He went to work on a transmission job that was already 3 days behind, and he let her be. She came to find him around 2 in the morning. He was under a 19F 150 when he heard her footsteps on the concrete, careful steps, the kind people make in unfamiliar spaces. He slid out from under the truck and found her standing just inside the bay door, arms crossed, looking at him with an expression he couldn't read but that had the quality of a decision. Those men moved the SUV, she said. I saw. They're parked on the street now. I can see the tail lights from the side window. He stood and wiped his hands on a shop rag. They're waiting to see if you try to leave. Yes, she came into the bay properly and sat on a rolling stool by the tool chest. I need to tell you something. Okay, I don't know how to say this, simply. I've been in the middle of something. For months. Something I didn't start and couldn't finish. She rubbed her eyes, and for a moment she looked much younger. My name is Anna Whitmore. He waited, because that name was either significant to him or it wasn't, and he genuinely wasn't sure. My father is Gerald Whitmore, she added. That one he recognized. Gerald Whitmore was the kind of name that appeared in news stories alongside words like acquisition, portfolio, and, occasionally, congressional testimony. He was old money and new money simultaneously, the rare kind of person who had inherited enough to be comfortable and then made enough on his own to be untouchable. He ran Whitmore Industries, which was a name that appeared on building facades and on the lists of donors to things like university wings and hospital equipment funds. Ethan didn't know the specifics, but he knew the name. Okay, he said. That doesn't bother you. It's information, he said. Should it bother me? She almost smiled. Most people either become extremely deferential or extremely suspicious. You just said, okay. What happened? He asked. She looked at her hands. My father has a business partner. Had a business partner is more accurate now. a man named Douglas Farwell. They've been co-invested in a development project for nearly a decade. It was always a complicated arrangement, and about 18 months ago it stopped being a manageable complication and became a legal one. She paused. There's money that moved in ways it shouldn't have. My father's name is on the arrangements, but the direction came from Farwell. I know because I was the one who found the documents. You work for the company? I have a role on the oversight board, which Farwell always considered decorative. A dry, humorless note. It was not decorative. Ethan set down the shop rag. And Farwell sent those men. Farwell sent those men, she confirmed. My father is in an inpatient facility right now, cardiac issues. He's been hospitalized for 3 weeks. Farwell knows I have the documents. He knows I've been preparing to hand them to the federal investigators I've been in contact with. And he knows that while my father is incapacitated, I don't have the same protection I'd normally have. How did they find you here? I made a mistake. I used a credit card to buy gas 2 towns over. I thought I'd been careful, but... She shook her head. How many people know where you are right now? 1, my lawyer. And she's the only person I trust completely. Ethan was quiet for a moment, working through the shape of it. Those men outside, he said. I don't know, she said honestly. I think they want the documents, not a crime. Where are the documents? Encrypted. Cloud storage. Nothing they can access without passwords I haven't given anyone. She looked at him. I'm not helpless, Ethan. I want you to know that. I've been careful, and I've been smart, and I've been doing this on my own for weeks. Tonight was a mistake. The battery, the timing, the storm, a convergence of bad luck. Most dangerous situations are, he said. She looked at him steadily. I'll be gone as soon as the storm breaks and I can get the car started. I don't want to bring whatever this is into your life. It's already in my life, he said. And he wasn't angry about it. So, let's figure out what to do. They made a plan the way sensible people make plans under pressure, not dramatically, not with false confidence, but step by step, with contingencies. Anna needed to contact her lawyer and the federal contacts she'd established. The garage landline was an older system that didn't route through anything traceable back to her. She made 2 calls, each short, each specific. Coordinates, names, a time window. Ethan fixed the battery. Not a glamorous act pulling the battery from the silver sedan in the freezing cold, hauling it back to the charging station in the bay, hooking it up. But it was a thing he could do, a concrete thing, and he found that concrete things were useful in situations that were otherwise abstract and frightening. While the battery charged, he told her about Lily. Not because it was relevant, it wasn't, but because she asked, and because somewhere in the middle of a bad night, ordinary details become anchoring. He told her about the school, the aftercare, the Tuesday walks, the question about clouds. Clouds aren't alive, Anna said. I told her that. She accepted it philosophically. She's 6, and she's already making philosophical peace with unsatisfying answers. That's impressive. She's impressive, he said simply, the way a father says it when it's just true. Anna was quiet for a moment. My father used to say I was the most stubborn person he knew, she said. He meant it as a compliment. I inherited it from him, and it infuriated him when he saw it from the outside. Something shifted in her expression. Not grief, exactly, but proximity to it. He needs to get better. He needs to get better so he can watch me dismantle everything Farwell built. He will, Ethan said. He didn't know that, but it felt like the right thing to offer, and he only offered things he could stand behind. Around 3:30, Lily woke up and came to the bay doorway, dragging her blanket. Daddy, I had a dream, she announced. Good dream or bad dream? Medium dream. There was a cloud in it, but it wasn't alive. I'm still here, Anna confirmed. Good. Lily came and sat on the concrete beside Ethan's feet with the absolute lack of self-consciousness of a 6-year-old. I thought maybe you'd gone back outside. The storm's still going. Daddy said you could stay." Lily looked up at her father. "Did you fix her car?" "Working on it." Lily nodded seriously. She sat for a while in the warmth of the bay, and then she fell asleep again, sitting upright, and Ethan picked her up and carried her back to the couch. When he returned, Anna was standing at the bay window, watching the street. "They're still there," she said. "I know. What do we do if they come in?" "If they come onto the property, I can call the police." Coming onto someone's private property after midnight changes the conversation significantly. He paused. "I also have Dale's number." "Dale?" "Dale Hargrove, the owner. His son-in-law is the county sheriff." She turned to look at him. "Of course he is. Small town," Ethan said. They waited. The snow continued. The battery charged. And nothing happened, which was its own kind of vigil, its own kind of exhaustion. At 5:15, the SUV's lights came on. They both watched. It pulled out slowly and drove east, down the main road, and disappeared. Anna let out a breath that took a long time to leave her body. Ethan said nothing. He watched the street for another full minute, force of habit, caution, and then he went to reinstall the battery. Dawn came in around 6:30, gray and exhausted looking, the sky the color of old pewter. The storm had wound down to a sulk-light flurries, minimal wind, the roads already being worked by the county plows that started before sunup. Anna's car started on the first try. She sat in it for a moment with the engine running. Then she turned it off and came back inside. Ethan was finishing the last of the break room coffee, which had been sitting since 3 and was not, at this point, a pleasant experience. "You should go," he said, "before the roads get busy." "I know." She sat down across from him. "I want to tell you something first." "You don't have to." "I do." She folded her hands on the table. "I've spent the last several weeks not trusting anyone. Because I had to. Because it was the smart thing to do. And it works. Not trusting people. It keeps you moving. But it costs something, doing it that way. It costs something every day." She paused. "Last night cost me something different. A different kind." He waited. "It reminded me that kindness exists," she said. "That sounds absurd. I know it sounds absurd. But when you've been in a particular kind of dark for long enough, you forget the other possibilities." "It wasn't heroic," he said. "I just didn't want to walk past it." "That's exactly what I mean," she said. Lily came in from the break room, shoes on the wrong feet, hair in complete disarray. She had a proprietary grip on her blanket and the specific expression of a child who has been awake long enough to form opinions. "Are you leaving?" she asked Anna. "I have to." "Okay." Lily considered this with appropriate gravity. Then she held out her blanket. "You can borrow this." "For the car." "So you're not cold." Anna looked at the blanket, then at Lily. Something crossed her face that Ethan couldn't fully name, but that he recognized as belonging to the category of things that reach inside a person and rearrange something. "I can't take your blanket," Anna said gently. "It's a loan," Lily said. "You can return it when you come back." It was a child's logic, unassailable in its simplicity. Anna accepted the blanket. She folded it carefully across her passenger seat and then came back and crouched down to Lily's eye level. "Thank you," she said seriously. "I'll take very good care of it." "I know," Lily said. "You seem responsible." Anna stood. She looked at Ethan one last time, level, clear, without the evasion that had been in her eyes the night before. "I'll be in touch," she said. "When this is over, you don't have to be." "I know," she said. "That's why I will." She drove away in the early gray morning. The silver sedan's taillights disappeared around the corner of Birch and Main, and then there was just the street and the settled snow and the particular quiet that follows a storm. Lily stood beside Ethan and watched until the car was gone. "Daddy," she said. "Yeah, I think she'll come back." "Maybe," he said. I think so, Lily said, with the confidence of someone who was not in the habit of being wrong about people. Come on. I'm hungry. He took her hand and they walked inside. The story came out in pieces, the way stories always do. It wasn't until 3 days later, when Ethan was sitting in the break room eating a sandwich and watching the small TV that Dale Hargrove kept on a shelf above the filing cabinet, that he saw Anna's face on the screen. The chyron read, Whitmore High-Risk Surfaces, Key Witness in Farwell Fraud Investigation. He watched the segment for about 4 minutes. Anna Whitmore, daughter of industrialist Gerald Whitmore, had delivered documentation to federal investigators alleging a systematic financial fraud scheme spanning 8 years. The documentation implicated Douglas Farwell, former co-chairman of Whitmore Industries, in the misappropriation of development funds amounting to, according to the report, an estimated $312 million. Farwell's lawyers had issued a statement. Anna Whitmore had given a brief press conference, composed and precise, in which she had answered 12 questions in 16 minutes and thanked the investigators for their professionalism. She looked, on television, like a different version of herself than the woman who had sat in the break room at 2 a.m. with both hands around a paper cup of bad coffee. She had the same face, the same directness in her eyes, but the context around her was different, and context changes how things look. Dale wandered in at the tail end of the segment. That the Whitmore thing? He said, pouring himself a coffee. Yeah, hell of a mess that family's been in. Dale looked at the screen. You follow it at all? A little, Ethan said. He ate the rest of his sandwich and thought about storms and long nights and the way certain kinds of cold got into your bones. He didn't say anything to Dale. There was nothing to say, really. He'd kept a woman warm for a night. He'd been decent. It had required very little of him, and had mattered, apparently, more than he'd known. He went back to work on a brake job that was waiting. The envelope arrived at the garage on a Thursday. Dale brought it to him in the bay, a thick, cream-colored envelope, Ethan's name on the front in clean printed type, a return address in Boston that he didn't recognize. Fancy, Dale observed, and left him to it. Inside was a letter, 2 pages, handwritten, in the careful penmanship of someone who'd been taught that handwriting mattered. And folded with the letter was something else, a short note clipped to the front page, also handwritten. The note said, Ethan, the investigation closed yesterday. Farwell surrendered to federal custody this morning. My father is home from the hospital and furious about the diet his cardiologist has prescribed, which I take as an excellent sign. I don't know what to say that isn't inadequate. So I'll say this. The night I broke down in Colton Falls, I had not slept properly in 6 days. I was running on pure fear. And fear is a terrible fuel. It burns hot and it burns fast and it doesn't leave you with anything warm. You gave me something warm. You and Lily both. I can never really repay that. But I'm trying to say thank you in a language that makes sense. The letter explains the rest. A.V. Ethan read the main letter carefully, standing in the bay with the envelope in his hand. It was not a check. He'd half expected a check, or some elaborate financial arrangement that he would have found uncomfortable and probably refused. It was not that. It was a letter to Dale Hargrove, CC'd to Ethan, from Whitmore Industries Fleet Services Division, expressing interest in establishing a contracted service agreement with Hargrove Auto for fleet maintenance and repair across Whitmore's regional properties and satellite offices. 11 vehicles initially, with potential for expansion. An attached rate schedule. A signature line for Dale's consideration. Ethan worked out the numbers roughly in his head. If the contract ran for 2 years at the suggested rates, it would represent more revenue than Hargrove Auto had seen in its best single year on record. He took the letter to Dale. Dale read it twice, then set it on his desk and looked at Ethan for a long time. You want to explain how Whitmore Industries knows we exist? Dale said. Long story, Ethan said. I've got time. Ethan told him enough. Not all of it, some of it felt like Anna's story to tell, not his. But enough that Dale could understand the general shape. Dale was quiet for a while after that. She didn't have to do this, Dale said. No, I mean, she could have just sent you a check. Some people send checks. I know. She set it up so you'd still have a job here. Same job, just with more work and more income. For both of us. Dale looked at the letter again. She was being careful not to change your life, just to make it easier. Ethan hadn't put it in those exact words, but yes, that was it. Are you going to sign it? He asked. Of course I'm going to sign it, Dale said. I'm not an idiot. She came back in April, when the last of the snow had retreated to the north faces of hills, and the first tentative green was beginning on the roadsides. She came in a regular car, this time a sensible, navy blue sedan. No driver, no entourage. She parked in the Hargrove lot and walked in through the main bay door like anyone else. Ethan was at the service counter writing up an estimate when he saw her. He looked up. She looked back. Hi, she said. Hi. She had the blanket under her arm. She set it on the counter. As promised, he picked it up. It had been washed and folded with a precision that suggested genuine effort. Lily's going to be pleased, he said. How is she? Good, she got a dog. Something bright crossed Anna's face. Of course she did. Small one. It's afraid of the snow, which Lily finds philosophically interesting. A dog afraid of snow. There's a certain poetry in that. Dale appeared from the office with the transparent excuse of needing something from the filing cabinet near the counter, glanced between the two of them, and retreated with approximately no subtlety. Ethan and Anna both heard the cabinet drawer slide pointedly closed. Your boss? She asked. And matchmaker, apparently. She smiled a real smile, unhurried. He hadn't seen one like that from her before. The ones before had been smaller, defensive, borrowed from some warmer version of herself that the previous months had put away. This was the actual version. I wanted to say thank you in person, she said. Properly. The letter was, I wanted to do it properly. You didn't have to come back. Lily told me she thought I would. She tilted her head slightly. I don't like to disappoint children. He laughed a short, genuine sound. She has that effect on people. They talked for 20 minutes at the counter. About the investigation, which had proceeded from the federal documentation with a speed and thoroughness that surprised even Anna. About her father, who was recovering and who had apparently spent his hospital convalescence reading depositions, which his cardiologist considered inadvisable and which Anna had been unable to prevent. About the development project that was now in receivership. About the fact that Anna was, for the first time in over a year, sleeping properly. That's the thing no one tells you, she said. About being afraid for a long time. You don't know how tired you are until you're not afraid anymore. How long has it been? He asked. Not being afraid. About 3 weeks, she said. Roughly since the arraignment. She paused. Well, since the night you said I was with you. The fear changed quality after that. It was still there, but it was different. Less total. Ethan didn't have a response to that seemed adequate, so he didn't try for one. I know you have work, she said. I do. I'm in Vermont for the week. My father has a property about 40 minutes north. I'm there with him while he finishes recovery. She set her keys on the counter, picked them up again. I thought if you and Lily wanted to have dinner, some evening when it's convenient. Not as payment, not as anything with strings or significance. Just dinner. Lily will want to show you the dog, he warned. I'm counting on it. He looked at her for a moment, this woman who had appeared in a parking lot in a snowstorm, and held his daughter's hand and sat in a break room in Kashmir, and told him the truth about a frightening thing, and then driven away in time. The gray morning. Friday, he said. She gets out of aftercare at 5:30. Friday, Anna agreed. She left. Ethan stood at the counter for another moment, then went back to the estimate. Dale emerged from the office again, filing cabinet entirely forgotten. Friday? Dale said. Go away, Dale. I'm just saying. Dale. Dale went away. But he was smiling, and Ethan could hear it from across the bay, and he didn't particularly mind. The dog was named Biscuit. He was a beagle mix with outsized ears and a skeptical expression and, as advertised, a deep philosophical objection to snow that extended. By early April, to any precipitation whatsoever, including light drizzle, Lily introduced him to Anna on the front step of the house on Millard Street with the gravity of a formal ceremony. Anna shook Biscuit's paw. Biscuit regarded her with his usual skepticism and then decided she was acceptable, which Lily announced meant she was trustworthy. He's a good judge of character, Lily informed her. I'll take the endorsement, Anna said. Dinner was pasta, because it was what Ethan knew he could make without stress, and garlic bread from the bakery on 4th, and a salad that was really just an excuse to use the good dressing Lily liked. It was, by any external measure, an unremarkable meal. It was also the best dinner Ethan could remember having in several years. Anna helped with the dishes without making a production of it. Lily gave her a comprehensive tour of the house, which took longer than seemed geometrically possible given the square footage, largely because each room contained objects requiring explanation. And this is where Daddy reads, Lily said, indicating the armchair by the front window. He reads after I'm asleep. I know because he tells me in the morning what he read about. What are you reading now? Anna asked Ethan. A history of naval engineering, he said. Don't ask. I'm asking. I like knowing how things were built. Old things. Things where you couldn't just look up the answer, people had to figure it out from first principles. She considered this. I think that explains some things about you. What things? She looked at him. You work from first principles, too. What's in front of you, what's needed, what's possible. No theory, no framework, just the actual situation. He wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an observation. It didn't matter. It felt accurate. Lily fell asleep on the couch with Biscuit on her feet at 8:15, mid-sentence about something to do with the interior social dynamics of second grade, which had apparently grown more complex since January. Ethan carried her to bed. He came back to find Anna standing by the front window, looking out at Millard Street in the April dark. The last of the salt from the winter was still visible at the road margins, gray-white streaks across the asphalt. She's wonderful, Anna said. I know. You're doing it right. He sat on the arm of the couch. I'm doing it alone. I'm not sure those are the same thing. Alone and right, she said. Both can be true. She turned from the window. I was alone doing what I was doing for a long time. It was the right thing. I wasn't sure I'd make it to the other side of it. You did. I did. She picked up her coat from the chair, partly because someone who had no reason to help me said 4 words in a parking lot. I've been told, Ethan said, that it's become something of a story. She's with me. He said it a little wryly. Dale's told it to every customer he has, as he should. She smiled. It's a good story. It's a simple story. The good ones usually are. She put on her coat. He walked her to the door. She paused on the step in the cool April night. Same time next Friday? He looked at her, this woman who had arrived out of a storm, and changed the specific gravity of an ordinary life. Not with money or power or anything theatrical, but just by being a real person who had needed help and then, when the need was past, come back anyway. Same time, he said. She drove away down Millard Street. Ethan stood on the step a little longer than necessary, looking at the place where her tail lights had been. The night was quiet. Somewhere on the block, a porch light came on and then went off again. He went inside. Biscuit had moved from Lily's bed to the armchair by the window, his own kind of first principles, Ethan supposed. He relocated him with the resigned patience of a man who has already lost the armchair argument and simply hasn't said so yet. He sat down. He thought, as he often did in the quiet of late evenings, about the specific texture of his life, the way it felt from the inside. Walking through it, the weight of what it required and the weight of what it gave back. It was not a large life by most measures. It was not impressive. He did not own things that signified success. He lived on a street with other people who worked for what they had, in a town small enough that you knew the names of the people at the hardware store. But it was his. And Lily was in the next room, and Biscuit was making the disgruntled sounds of a dog resettled against his will. And on Friday, there would be pasta and garlic bread, and a woman who looked at him like he was someone worth looking at. 4 words. She's with me. He had said them without thinking, because the situation required them and he had them to give. That was all it had been. That was the whole mechanism of it, not heroism, not strategy. Just a person in a parking lot on a cold night, choosing not to walk past, and everything that followed had been built on that. He picked up his book, Naval Engineering, page 47. The design of rope and pulley systems that had moved impossible weights across impossible distances. He read. Outside, on Millard Street, the April night was quiet and cool, and the last of the winter's snow was almost completely gone.